Did you know that the Battle of Fredericksburg began with one of the most incredible engineering feats of the Civil War? Imagine this. Union soldiers needed to cross the wide Rappahannock River. Their plan was to build floating bridges, called pontoon bridges, right under the noses of their Confederate enemies. But hidden Confederate sharpshooters, positioned in the buildings of Fredericksburg, were waiting for them. Every time the Union engineers tried to work, a shot would ring out, and another man would fall into the icy water below. The Union Army was massive, over 120,000 men strong, but they were stuck on one side of the river. General Robert E. Lee had positioned his men on the high ground behind the town, a place called Mary's Heights. Finally, the Union commander, Ambrose Burnside, made a desperate choice. He ordered his cannons to fire directly into the town of Fredericksburg. For hours, more than 150 cannons bombarded the historic city, setting buildings on fire and sending civilians running for their lives. After the bombardment, Union soldiers piled into small boats and rowed across the river in waves, charging directly into the city. This was the first major urban combat of the Civil War. They fought from house to house, in alleys and in gardens. The Union soldiers, angry and frustrated by their losses, began to loot Fredericksburg. At the base of Mary's Heights was a long, sunken road protected by a low stone wall. It seemed like a simple obstacle, but it would become one of the deadliest places in the entire Civil War. Behind that stone wall, thousands of Confederate soldiers from Georgia and North Carolina were waiting, crouched 4 ranks deep, ready to fire in continuous volleys. On December 13, 1862, General Burnside ordered the first charge. Thousands of Union soldiers with their blue uniforms and bright flags marched out of the city and into the open field. As the Union lines got closer, the Confederate infantry behind the wall opened fire. A sheet of flame and lead erupted, cutting down the front ranks of the charging soldiers. In total, the Union Army made at least 14 separate charges against the stone wall, and every single one was destroyed. No soldier ever got within 50 yards of it. One of the most famous figures was Sergeant Richard Kirkland of the 2nd South Carolina Infantry. Unable to bear the sounds of wounded Union soldiers, he asked permission to give them water. For about an hour and a half, this angel of Mary's Heights moved from one wounded soldier to another, offering comfort to his enemies. Another powerful voice from the battle was that of the great American poet, Walt Whitman. His brother George was wounded at Fredericksburg. Whitman searched through the chaotic field hospitals and saw firsthand the terrible suffering of the soldiers. This experience changed him forever, and he decided to stay in Washington, D.C. for the rest of the war, volunteering as a nurse. The Irish Brigade, a famous unit of Irish-American soldiers, placed a sprig of green boxwood in each cap to honor their Irish heritage before charging Mary's Heights. The brigade suffered over 500 casualties, losing more than 40% of its men. Their green sprigs were found scattered among the dead and dying on the field. A strange and gruesome sight appeared in a shallow canal that crossed the field. So many Union soldiers had been shot while trying to cross this small waterway that their bodies had literally formed a bridge. The Union Army had suffered over 12,000 casualties, while the Confederates had lost fewer than 5,000. Abraham Lincoln, upon hearing the news, said simply, "If there is a worse place than hell, I am in it." And for our final fun fact, John Pelham, a young Confederate artillery officer known as the Gallant Pelham, bravely used just 2 cannons to hold up an entire wing of the Union Army for hours. But what you might not know is that his grandfather had once owned a copy of the Declaration of Independence. That very copy was later acquired by television producer Norman Lear, who took it on a tour across America to inspire patriotism. If you enjoyed these surprising stories from the past, be sure to subscribe for more hidden history.